Have all
Yes,
of you given the test? Yes.
yes, ma'am.
Could you answer most of it, or it was difficult to answer? It were very simple questions, right? Did anyone find difficult? Because this is the last week of our training session. We are going to revise everything what we have learned last 4 weeks and learn something about mathematics, which we have not touched till now, and some part of science, which we have missed out, the biology part of it, and any anything else. Whenever we study, can that also be part of the same process? Or is it only the school subjects can be learned this way? So I'm going to show you what all is possible in this direction today. So let's understand. We did all this study. We learned how to create point structure for language, then history, then geography, and then science. So let's understand this comparison, what happened in each, what was good and what was changing. In language, there was more text, so visualization was possible. Dramatization by the author helps you to make more difficulty in creating point structures actually, because you have to do it yourself. But when it comes to history, it is exactly similar to language, but it has events or people which already has occurred. It's not somebody's imagination. When it comes to geography, you had it where things about places or um, facts. So it is fact, so you can't do any own writing or own imagination. As you move to science, it is much more critical, much more logical. You have to follow what is being stated in the text. So from language to science, as you move, your own word writing, the articulation should become narrowed down to the facts. It can't be whatever you feel about it. In language and history, there could be still some feeling, but as you move towards science, there is no feeling but only logic. Next is language and history are easy for comprehension because you can take points out of it. Science, as you move toward geography, is also called as science. It's called geographical science. So it has already a structure of subpoints, subpoints. The way the presentation of the text itself will have more points. So you don't have to do much comprehension. It is already in the comprehended form. For language and history, you can do visualization very comfortably because it's about emotions. Episodic memory will be used more. But as you move to science, visualization becomes difficult. And as you go to science and math, the other visualization is almost impossible sometimes. Own word writing is acceptable in language, it's acceptable in history unless you move the facts very perfectly. As you move to science, writing in your own words may not be acceptable. You can paraphrase it, but you can't change the concept. Same way, the connectivity between the chapters. In language, there need not be any connectivity, each would be a different story by itself. History, some lessons may have connectivity, but again, it's possible that at different times you learn the history about, then there need not be much connectivity. But as you move towards science, what you learned in previous year, or previous chapter becomes important. So there is connectivity. So these are few important points which you should understand, that each one of the subjects which you study in your school or in life in general are having their own speciality, and hence you have to use different memory techniques to remember these different aspects of the study. So now, what is that is we are going to understand what impacts study of science. And generally, they say that science and maths are called supposed to be higher logical order or higher difficulty order for most of the people in the world. So why that happens? Why is so that science and maths are little difficult than other subjects? What is that difficulty which comes from? So the prerequisite knowledge of the concept studied is important. So what you studied in your fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, you have to carry it ahead. You can't forget about it. But not so with history or language. You need not remember every story you studied, but you just remember the grammar and the sentence framing. You can go ahead. Vocabulary of science or math is important. You should know which words, what they mean, because they are more defined as they are used. So you should understand that well. Logical thinking is something very, very important for science and math. So actually, I can say that language and history are more right brain oriented subjects, whereas science and maths are more left brain oriented subjects. In language, its grammar is though left brain oriented, and in science, the fantasy of science is a right brain oriented. Like if you see the movies where science fiction movies, it's nothing of left brain, but it's all about right brain oriented. So, as such, you study language and history as right brain process, whereas science and maths are left brain. So if you are strong with your left brain, you will enjoy doing science and math. If you are not, you will have to learn to develop that left brain. And finally, what remains to science or maths, if you study it independently, independent of your real life situations, they become very abstract, vivid, not able to understand only because of its abstractness. If you can connect those things with real life situations, then it starts becoming interesting. So those who can connect science and maths with real life, it becomes very interesting. If you have a good teacher who teaches you while connecting the abstractness or facts of science and maths with how they are used in real life, then it becomes very interesting. For example, if you study ratio and proportion, it's part of science and maths both, especially studied in maths. Now, if you study it as what is the definition of ratio and how you use it, and without connecting it in real life, then it becomes very, very dry. But if your mother, father, or teacher teaches you that what is being, say, in your mother's kitchen, everything in cooking depends on the ratio in which the whole or the proportion in which the ingredients are put in. So if your mother tells you that to cook rice, you need to use the ratio 1:2. That means if you take rice at one proportion, you need to put water two proportions, and then you put it for cooking, the rice cooking will be done better. So if you start connecting science to real life situation, it becomes more interesting. So if you are lucky enough to get that, science and maths become easy. So now, another problem with science and maths is the way it is written. It is not written like how nice words will be used while writing a history or a language book, which will allow you to visualize because it's more about episodic. But science uses words like therefore, because, so, hence. That means there is some activity which happened and its inference is put in. So you have to understand the activity which happened and then its inference. So that connection of the words like because, therefore, hence needs you to have the logical connect of two things, like the activity and its inference. Same way, the comprehension becomes very difficult if you have lost the information from your brain about what you studied before. Like prerequisite knowledge is not there, it becomes very difficult. And that is why we cannot teach you science unless you of some sudden one book you take and start reading. It will be not so easy because prerequisite is more in science and maths than in language and history. So visualization is really tough sometimes because what words you see, they may not mean exactly what you think about or what is in your mind. So let's try doing this visualization. Is it really possible? So I will give a paragraph. I request one of you to read the paragraph and others try to visualize this paragraph from a science text. It is not necessarily from any particular school book, but it's a general text which I want one of you to read. Who can read this? It's a very simple text, 4 or 5 lines basically. Yes, who is ready to read? Dikshita, Anushka, any one of you read and others try to visualize.
Should I read the whole paragraph?
Yes, yes, please read. Whoever goes first.
Mhm.
Dikshita, you can go ahead.
Water enters the mouth where it passes over the gills on either side of the head. The water is then forced out through separate pairs of gill slits. The gills are respiratory organs of the fish. The shark has large, well-developed eyes on either side of the head above the mouth, paired nostrils on the ventral side if the head lead to the olfactory sacs. This olfactory sac sense odors in the water. As already mentioned, shark skeletons are made up of the cartilage rather than bone.
So you get a sense it is talking about what? It's talking about the shark, right? But can you actually start visualizing and feel how the size of the shark, nothing is specified. Where is the gills, how they look, nothing is specified. So unless you have seen the shark, you will not be able to visualize. So facts are very difficult to visualize when it comes to science. It is, you don't even know what the text further is going to talk about. It's going to talk about the respiratory system of shark to give in detail further. But this part of the text doesn't tell you that. It just feels that you are actually looking at what are the parts like eyes, the bone, the cage, and everything, whatever stated there looks like you cannot necessarily connect unless you know how the information about shark is pre-known to you. So this is the difficulty in science. So don't try to do the visualization technique with either science or math because it's more logical and factual. You must know what it is. After that, you may remember it with a picture, and that is why science textbooks will have more pictures than any other textbook. Or science needs a laboratory where you actually do the experiments, understand it, and then the logic is well understood. Okay, so what are the difficulties in the science textbook? What is that? Because I'm telling you this only because not to scare you, but to make you aware that if you are interested in science, you must be aware about this, that while studying science, you should use a different technique than what you used in language or history. So basically, the effort you put in comprehending depends on your purpose. And that describes purpose in the sense, are you having interest in going ahead deeper into its understanding? If you are reading it for fiction, then that need not have an understanding part of it, you're going to enjoy it. But if your purpose is about going deeper into science, then you must have prior knowledge about it. So prior knowledge is very important if the purpose is about more deeper understanding. Then too many new concepts will get introduced even in one lesson or one textbook. Lot of new vocabulary will also come and more logic than imagination. Many new words will get introduced. The spellings will be very difficult, especially with biology, that about animals names and plants names or the parts inside. The scientific name of it is not something which we usually use it in the regular spoken language. That becomes another difficulty. And then demand on connecting information within lessons. It's very important to connect between the concepts which are given, and that is needing logic. And then the questions need you to go deeper. It needs to have some strategy in answering. It needs some logical steps to be followed while answering. It needs some kind of a inferential way of writing. So the reading, writing, and connecting information, all three are different. And you must develop that when you want to study science or engineering or technology. All engineering and technology are basically based on science. So those of you who wish to go ahead and take up engineering or technology, you must pay attention to these aspects. Those of you who want to go in accounts or go ahead and do something to deal with accounting or any of those administrative things, you need not worry so much about this logic, but then you need to know the history well and the mathematics well. These two is a very different combination which will be required. So what you study in your school, if you have not set your goal very well, it will always become very difficult and you will study something to get marks. But remember that whenever you study, only goal is to get marks. You will get it. You will definitely get the marks if you do hard work. But I wish you do the smart work of understanding and then answering and then getting marks, which remains with you for the long term goal which you have set in. And if your goal is to do science, engineering, or technology, better study science with a left brain approach where logical process or understanding its concept is stressed upon rather than by hearting an answer and writing it. So what you will need to study separately in this is summarization. So comprehension would be actually taken in as writing in a chronological order with the reasoning. It's not simply putting one below another the points, but each with connecting to the reason. Then developing a good vocabulary. It's very, very essential for science, not much so with maths, but I'll talk about maths little later about its vocabulary. And then comparing and contrasting. This is something which comes more as a type of question, more in science and geography sometimes than language and history. So comparing and contrasting actually is a logical way of inferring the data which you have received. So these are the different types which you will have to, and these don't need the techniques which we have studied before. So they need little change in this way of operating the techniques. So somebody, I think Rutuja had asked me in the conversation before that how to memorize spelling. And I was definitely to do this for you when it comes to science, because science definitely has some words which you don't use regularly in your spoken language in like regular usage, but you need to remember them as they are. So I'm going to teach you three different techniques which help you. Right from your schooling in first, second grade, they must have taught you some techniques, but I'm going to teach you which are memory based or meditation based techniques basically. So strategies for remembering spelling, all of you please note it down. Chunking, we have seen this as one mnemonic. What we do in chunking is divide the word into groups of letters and remember them a word like a sentence. I'll show you with some examples in the next slide. So chunking is a very good, if the spelling is very long, you don't try to by heart the very long spelling with 10 to 11, 10, 11, 12 letters, words, which come very often in science. Use chunking where you divide them into groups and then remember them part by part. Second is rhyming. Rhyming in the sense, find out the similar own spelling which you already know and try to remember that, connecting it. So little change in the spelling, but the rhyming is same. It becomes very easy. This is the second technique. I'll also show you this with few examples. And third is flashcards. And this I'm going to talk more about because this is more towards our memory technique. So let's look at each one of these because I suggest these three techniques once you cross 7th, 8th standard. These are the three easy techniques forever. At any point of time, you need spellings to be remembered. I wouldn't say by hearted, but to be understood because English as such is a very bad language. If you look at any Indian language, the beauty of Indian language is the way you speak, the way you write. It's the pronunciation tells you the spelling. So it's very easy in Indian languages to write the spellings. You don't have to by heart the spelling if you know how to pronounce it. But English is a very funny language. It has some silent letters. It rules keep changing. Every rule has a by rule. So if you try to remember the phonetic rules, in beginning years, it's very nice, it's simple. But as you go ahead and when word becomes complicated, instead of always going with phonetics, these in phonetics definitely work. But instead of using always only depending on phonetics, chunking, rhyming, and flashcards help a lot. Like uh, students who have to write exams like TOEFL or GRE who want to go to different universities where they check your capability of English do use flashcards at ages like when they have crossed their degree and they want to write for higher education. So flashcards, I'll explain you in more details because that's the way even I have learned English in later years. Okay, so chunking is something like this. So if you want to remember the spelling of recreation, you cut it into three parts and read it as recreation or telefona, wonderful. You know these words independently because they are smaller words or smaller in size. So cut them into your way. Not necessarily everyone should do in the same way, but what suits to your mind, divide the word into group of letters and then read them like a sentence and remember the spelling as if you are reading a sentence. The next is rhyming words. So if you know a word, this is something maybe lower grade students would be using it. But you can, like, suppose you want to remember change, range, strange. There is something rhyming in it. It will have a very similar spelling, and some part of it will be changing. So if you know one spelling well, understand what is that pronunciation changing and make it. So this suits if you already know some spelling which is similar. Otherwise, it's not very easy because you have to do some work in finding out a similar word. But flashcards is a very beautiful way of remembering spellings instead of writing them again and again and again or by hearting. You take your father's visiting card box or the waste visiting cards or buy a new empty visiting card box. Every time you come across a new spelling, write it down neatly and paste it in a place where you visit your house or room quite regularly. For example, it could be a mirror or it could be inside a bathroom. You sit every day going to the washroom, use the toilet for 10 minutes definitely. So you can go on seeing it. And I told you how the brain works. If you see the spelling again and again and again, the brain records it by the repeated seeing it. So make the small cards, flashcards, paste them at a point which you visit at least 5 to 10 times in a day. Keep it until you reach to a new word. If you get a new word, put it beside. So your room, your mirror place or your wardrobe, side of the wardrobe, let it be a place which you visit at least 5 to 10 times in a day. You place it there. Don't keep reading it purposely, but you will see it and the brain will record the spelling automatically. You will never make a mistake in the spelling because this goes like recitation without actually reading the spelling. And I suggest as you are doing meditation, as you are doing pranayam, your brain is becoming like a sponge. Flashcard is a very, very easy technique to remember very complicated spellings also. And even if you don't know the pronunciation of it, the spelling will fit in. And when the teacher teaches, or when you listen to somebody and you know that word is, and today you have a lot of technology where these flashcards are available on your mobile. You can put it, if the spelling is really very tough, put it as your screensaver, and whenever your mobile is off and you're not using it, this is the spelling which comes up. So you can make use of the technology available, or the place in your house which you visit quite regularly. Put the flashcards, they work wonders, for especially for things like spelling. And if you want to know its meaning, because that also is important, the bottom line below the spelling, you can write the meaning of it, and that meaning also gets into your brain permanently and it remains forever. Next, now let's go to, we have seen point structure for science, we have seen it for history and geography also. Let's understand, it's like a revision for point structure totally. Since last 5 weeks, what we have been seeing, let's understand point structure for biology. And why I have chosen biology? Because visualization is possible, but not very easy, because things are around you, but you may not have been seeing them very regularly. Let's look at, this is something about the protozoa, fungi, and algae. Now you see, there definitely will be some pictures beside the text. And without the pictures, whatever the text written is impossible to understand, because these are not the things which you see around you. They are microscopic. So unless the picture is very clear, so the teacher will also explain you using the picture first, and then there are properties about it. Then there are characterizations or characteristics about it. So basically, the biology part will contain three aspects: the characteristics or characterization, properties, and uses. So these three things, if you understand very well, so you look at the way the things are written. There is 2, 3, 4. There are 2, 3, 4 as main points. So protozoa, fungi, and algae become main points. Under each one of them, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. So each one of them becomes your subpoint, and then subpoints you can pick up from each line, and making a point structure will not be very difficult for you. So think of it like this. So if at all we look at protozoa and fungi, algae, we would put it in the next place because it was not sufficient place for me. So look at each line and divide it into important points. So you will have more and more sub-points here. You will have lots of examples, like the fourth point under protozoa. It gives you the organisms reproduce by simple cell division. So that's the characteristic. And examples, you need to remember them, because they will be part of your question. They would be part of match the following. They would be part of fill in the blanks. So nothing of this you can actually leave out of your point structure. And point structure will be easier to make, but it could be longer, and more subpoints would be possible in science, not so with English. Okay, so you could do for this as viruses. You want to give a try for this fifth one? Take 5 minutes and see if you can make point structure. I wish instead of virus, you make for that algae at the bottom, fourth. You have the point structure in front of you. I'll give you 3 to 4 minutes. You have algae and fungi almost done. Do the fourth, sorry, protozoa and fungi are done. You do for algae. I give you 3 to 4 minutes. Let's do revision for creating points for science. So get your pen, pencil, notebook, and make points for algae. You already have them 1, 2, 3 written. Put them in the form of the subpoint, subpoint, and as small as possible. So 2 words, don't write lines and lines. Take 2 to 3 minutes and make points for algae. Take a picture and share with me in the group.
Ma'am, you have to make for the algae, right?
Yes, only for algae, the fourth point. You want me to make it bigger? Is it possible?
Yeah.
Yeah, just give me a minute.
Ma'am, the screen is not visible.
Yeah, I have taken off the screen. I was just reshaping it. Yeah, you can see it now. Make the points for only algae. Once in the group.
Sorry, my internet wasn't working. What are we supposed to do?
You make points for this fourth point algae into point structure
Okay.
and share it in the group on WhatsApp.
Can I share it on Google Classroom?
You can, but I'll not be able to see it immediately. It will take me to shift from PowerPoint to Google. You can share
Oh,
it
yeah.
on Google. Yeah, both ways
Okay.
is okay. At the bottom, you write your name because your parents' names are coming, I think, in the phone. So it's becoming difficult for me to know who has sent it. Okay, Rituja, you are still writing long lines. Better cut it into smaller ones. Photosynthesis, you can write photosynthesis as a subpoint and then write sub-subpoints. Chloroplast in the cell, instead of writing a long line, because long lines are very difficult for brain to remember for long. It's better to have smaller 2 to 3 words. Who sent that previous? I think it is 8635. Whose number is that? Rishikesh? 87. You have not sent yet. 872-248-8635. It starts with SA, some name. It's done nicely. Keeping algae as the main point, you've done it well. Sahas, okay. Sahas, you have understood it well and written it. Only visible, if you want to add visible with naked eyes, because visible under microscope or visible under naked eyes, you could say visible dash naked eyes. That would complete nicely done. Sahas. Okay. So has everyone completed now? It's very small and simple. I just wanted to know whether you have understood what is making points. Now, below that points, what you made, write down which were totally new words for you in this 3 lines. Which were totally new words. Write the new words below. New words which you didn't know what the meaning is, you didn't know the spelling about it. In your notes, write down the new words you find in this particular slide. And for those new words, you are going to use the technique which I told you, flashcard, or you can chunk it up, or you can find any rhyming if it's possible. So if autotropic is a new word for you, then you can divide it into as auto, trophic. 3 different parts you can make it. That's one example. Yeah. Okay, somebody who has sent it with number 7003.
That's me. Oh, that's mine.
Okay, so you've done it nicely, but you could make into 3 different subtopics, would have been much better. If you wanted examples and below that you put 2 examples, instead of writing everything one below another, you could still structure it into subpoint and sub-subpoints. So photosynthesis could be one subpoint. Under that you write how the photosynthesis is carried out. Examples as another subpoint, and under that you write chlorella and the chamidomonas as 2 different sub-subpoints, like that. Otherwise, you have understood what to divide there.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think most of you are getting it, must have written, not sharing, that's fine, will not wait more. But you understand that science will have more easy way of writing, because the way the text written itself will be into points form, and it will have a lot of new words which may be totally new for you. You will have to remember the spellings and understand them, after the teacher explains. So sometimes reading science on your own may not be very easy to understand. It would be always better that you do the points, and when teacher explains, you combine the understanding and the points, memory will be more comfortable to remember. And spelling, you will have to use other methods if you are not using the point structure visual viewing regularly. Okay, so let's move to the next. Back. Yeah, so this is another important thing I wanted to discuss with you, like which memory technique is useful and for which of the type of study which you do. So if language, history, geography, science, and maths, I don't consider in this, but you can consider science/math. So we've learned these techniques: speed reading, comprehension, point structure, mind map, recitation, visualization, mnemonics, picture reading, and story making. It's not necessary that every technique is useful for every type of subject which you study. And that is true for as you go ahead and study different things also. So speed reading is possible for language and history, but may not be possible when you go to science, because science has a lot of new words and a lot of concepts. So speed reading is much easier when it is more of episodic. But when it comes to science, you will be able to do speed reading, but understanding may not happen with that. Comprehension is always possible, point structure is always possible, and mind map is always possible. So these three are possible for anything what you read. Recitation, in language, you can use it for poems. In history, you can use it for those years and events. In geography, you can use it if you want something which has order. And in science, you can use it for formulae. In mathematics, you can use it for the mathematical tables and formulas. Visualization you can do in language and history. In geography, for some parts of it, it's possible, but otherwise, please do not use visualization. It may give misrepresentation of information to your brain. Mnemonics may not be so good with language, but it's good with history, geography, and science. Picture reading, not much required for language and history, but required for geography, science, not much with math unless you go to geometry part of it. And story making is much easier for language and history, but you should not do too much of story making in geography and science unless you have got a good hold of scientific vocabulary and a good understanding of the subject. After you have got good understanding of the subject and you are feeling very confident, then you can use story making, because story making is a very important tool even today used in marketing, making advertisement and content writing, screenwriting. It's all about making a story from the pain point or facts. So story making is possible unless you have good knowledge about that particular thing. So this is all what you have learned. So make sure that the technique and the content is well matching. Otherwise, it will go difficulty for your brain to use the technique. Now, let's look at mind maps for subjects other than the school textbooks. So I have been always talking about language, history, geography, science, and maths, but there could be many other things for which the mind maps can be used. And when mind maps can be used, definitely mind maps are made using the point structure. So basically, I'm not showing you the point structure, but the mind maps which can be used. There are various things which you study in school. So let's look at music theory. This is something thanks to Divya, who had shared a book with me about what she is studying. And when I was reading about it, I found this is an easier way to do a mind map for music. So elements of music and what all it contains. You could even add little more information into one more level about it if you need to. So I hope Divya, you understand this now. This is what something you were looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So make sense.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is another thing, this is form or structure in music. It could be now going more deeper into. This could be something about sports. If you want to teach somebody tennis, but tennis is not only about execution on the ground, but it has its own understandings required for it. So this could be a brain map for sports. And as I have written for tennis, if you are playing football, you can make it for football. If you like cricket, you can make it for cricket. So what are the basic aspects of any sport? So the principles or the rules, then the way of putting that game or the way the game is played, how the scoring happens in that game, and what kind of surfaces on which it is played. Like a tennis is played on clay court, hard court, or today you have them on what do you say, the tough courts, or the kind of tournaments you play, how the games are designed in. So this is all to be known if you want to become a good tennis player. So same way, whichever sport you like, you can try to make the same thing for any sport of your interest. And you will find that it is much easier to remember everything in one go, that these are all very, very important and nothing can be left out. So see the way mind map can be made for anything. This is about theater arts. So if you are going to be a director or an actor into any one act play or a movie or a TV serial, then the director needs to do such kind of planning before every scene is put in. So whether he wants it to be an action type of, or a reflection, or a flashback, or it's a introduction of a character, or it's going to be about a suspense. So what is the type is there, or how the scene is going to be put in, or who are going to be the movements inside, or what is exactly the scene talking? Is it a one act play, or is it going to be continued ahead, or it's going to be end of something? So how the setting, people, characters, purpose, length, the music behind it, a lot of things which come in. So actually, I'll tell you, everything which your brain assimilates can be put into brain. So let it be sports, let it be theater, let it be music, let it be cooking. So I request the parents who are attending, do your design of a party for guests which are coming to your house. You do it actually like this, but in your brain, when you put it on paper, it comes like this. In an office, when we design a project plan, we actually do exactly like this, a rough work on the paper, and then decide who takes which responsibility and then proceed ahead. Now, the in thing today in computer science is the machine learning or artificial intelligence. This is the way the machine learning can be put in. Like you have a auto-driven car, in unmanned driven train or car. So how that would be actually processing? So this is supervised or unsupervised learning and reinforced learning. So machine learning actually is understanding how the brain functions and then put in. So we also do these three types of learnings basically: supervised, where somebody tells you and you keep on making it correct; unsupervised, which is where you are not, nobody is enforcing anything, it just puts in; and reinforcement is you keep doing again and again and again, and then you get to know. So these three types of learnings, human brain functions, and exactly same is used in machine learning also. So any learning process or any planning process can always be put into a mind map. Now, that's all about anything which we have studied as language, history, geography, or science. Now let's go into the nitty-gritties of mathematics. And why I've kept it at the end, because not much of the techniques which we used as point structure and all now need to be trained, but they can be directly used for what it is available in mathematics. But mathematics is basically much different than all other subjects. And what is different in it is, as mathematics, it has lots of internal subjects. Actually, that is supposed to be the oldest of the science available in this human development process. So maybe has a 1,000-year-old history of development, whereas the other sciences are not that old. But mathematics is like when we first started counting, right from there the arithmetic came and the geometry came parallelly with that when people started looking at shapes which are available in nature. So arithmetic and geometry were the two pillars, but they were not sufficient because the mathematician was not happy with the direct part of it. So they made it into algebra, which is abstractness of arithmetic, and extended geometry is called trigonometry. So arithmetic geometry is what you study in your third, fourth, fifth classes. As you go to six, seven classes, you move on to algebra little and trigonometry, where you start understanding angles and triangles. And then you move on to calculus. And from there is a vast mathematics which is possible if you want to get into engineering, science, or technology. All of these, which is written above, could be of your interest. So now, what is different in maths, as I told you? So one, it's always like somebody gives you problems and you solve it. So I had one student who told me that the maths teacher irritates me like anything. I said, why? What does that maths teacher do to you? He says the maths teacher gives problems and problems and problems and makes me solve his problems. If he cannot solve his problems, why should he trouble me? And the student was not understanding that the maths teacher is helping you to learn how to solve problems. So it's not giving you problems, but teaching you how to solve problems. The next is the communication of mathematics. So today it's called data science or data analytics. So it's all mathematics where you increase numbers, you have tables, figures, shapes, and various ways. Like we had COVID last 2 years, and every day we used to get numbers. This is much increase, this many deaths, this many hospitalizations, these many oxygen cylinders. Every country was talking about data, 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 and its implications and the statistics telling that what could happen ahead. So communicating that data is a part of mathematics, and then reasoning. So you say why it is like this. That's the logic behind it. So maths is data and logic combination. And the last part is the connection. So maths is everywhere. Without maths, nothing is possible, is what every scientist talks about. So maths is a universal language. I don't consider maths as a science sometimes. Maths is sometimes very close to music. Maths is very close to language. Maths is very close to art because it's there in everything. So how it's a language? Language needs vocabulary. It needs some grammar. It needs some syntax or rules of the grammar. And then it needs people who use it and understand it or use it for communication. And then mathematics definitely needs this as a definition of language because it has everything of these four, that vocabulary, grammar, syntax, and its usage and communication. But if you go to different places, there are different languages like English, Hindi, Marathi, Spanish, German. Every country has their own language and we need a translator in between. But mathematics is a universal language. Wherever you go in the world, 2 into 2 still remains 4, right? That doesn't change unless you get into computer based mathematics of 0 and 1. But otherwise, in decimal system, 2 into 2 still remains 4. So the symbols and organization to form the equations is the language you use only to represent the symbols, but otherwise the math remains the same. So we have to understand maths is a language, then you will not feel fear about maths, you will understand the beauty behind it. If you are scared of maths and you like music, understand there is a lot of maths in the music. If you are good at arts, understand that arts without math, the proportions, the presentations without maths is not possible. So What is the vocabulary of math? It has Arabic numerals 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It has fractions. It has variables ABCD. Now this ABCD you may write in whichever language you put it in. It has expressions. It has diagrams or visual elements like circle, angle, triangle, tensor, matrix. It has special symbols like infinity, pi, and the imaginary number I and minus I. These are invented symbols which has its own meaning in math. And it has verbs like action words, which are like equalities, inequalities, or action operators like addition, subtraction. All this is called the language of math. And if that is known, it becomes very easy to use math like a language. Now, what a chemist says, a chemist who does not know math is seriously handicapped, is a great chemist, Langmuir says. My research in physics has consisted in simply examining mathematical quantities of a kind that physicists use and trying to fit them together in an interesting way, simply a search for pretty mathematics. A great physicist Paul Dirac says that physics without math is no use. And in mathematics, we find the primitive source of rationality. The mathematics must the biologists resort for means to carry out their research. So Comte was a great biologist. So whether it's a chemist, a physicist, or a biologist, or an artist or a musician, everybody says maths. Without maths, they can't do what they do today. Let it be a computer scientist. So maths is there in everybody's life around you all the time. But we do not learn maths as if it's around us. We learn it in a very abstract way, and that's why we find it very, very difficult. So those of you who feel math is difficult, understand that it's not difficult, and even if it's difficult, it is required and essential. Without this, life ahead is going to be very difficult for you. So start making it interesting for you. Now, what math includes basically in your textbook? It's formulas, solving number problems that would be given that if x is 5 and x plus 5 is 10, then what is x plus y is 10, what is value of y? So they have given you in terms of numbers or word problems, that is a story will be told to you where math is required. You have to decipher the story, convert it into a mathematical, use the formula and reduce it. And at this solving word problems, you actually learn that they are all real life problems. So number problems are the formulas which you learn to substitute, but word problems is where your comprehension skill will be used. Comprehended problem, convert it into a number problem and solve it. That's when you will understand that if you can connect real life to mathematics, solving word problems becomes easy. And most of the students find it very difficult when it comes to word problems, and there they get stuck and then they say math is very difficult. But if you have learned the comprehension very well and can connect these two, in tomorrow's session I will teach you how a word problem has to be converted into a number problem and solve it easily. And finally, the geometry and the shapes, where you will have more little visualization technique to use. So for formulas, we will use the technique of recitation. For solving word problems, we will use comprehension. And for geometry and shapes, we will use visualization, but not the same way as what we used in English or history, but the way the math needs in its own language form. So we will use recitation, we will use comprehension, and we will use visualization at all these three. Okay, so now two techniques I will teach you today for math, the mnemonic and the recitation. So let's look at what mnemonics comes in mathematics. So if you have learned trigonometry, those of you who are little in higher classes, 8, 9, 10, somewhere will have this, the sine theta, cos theta, and tan theta. So if you have formula to remember, instead of remembering and by hearting sine theta is opposite by hypotenuse, cos is adjacent by hypotenuse, tan is opposite by adjacent, you remember it in a short format, SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA will allow you to remember S is O by H, C is A by H, and T is O by A. So SOHCAHTOA will allow you to remember the 3 formulas, and once you know these 3, you know all the remaining formulas of trigonometry. So this is a very useful mnemonic which is quite regularly taught and used. If your teacher has not taught and you have trigonometry in your study, please take this down, because this is a very useful, easy way, and this you will need forever wherever trigonometry comes to you in your further education. Next is this something which you start studying in your second standard. How are the operators to be put in which order? Unless you have put the brackets. If you have not put the brackets, the order in which the mathematical operators should be used in solving an equation, that's called the rule of BODMAS. And what is BODMAS is, you go from left to right, BODMAS, B for brackets, O for order, D for divide, M for multiply, A for add, and S for subtract. So B is the left is the topmost order and S is the lowest order. Yes, Dikshita, you have a question. You have raised your hand. Please ask me.
Yeah, do you mind going back to the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
slide?
Yes.
Yeah,
This
I
slide?
need that.
Yeah, please take
Yes,
it.
thank you.
Yes, please take it. Yeah, done?
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Yeah. So this is another important rule which you actually learned in your first or second standard when you first learn addition, then subtraction, then multiplication, then division. The order is always from left to right. And then if there are brackets, it's much easier to do. But if there are no brackets, when we come to computer mathematics or when you learn computer programming where math equations will come in, we don't use brackets. Then the BODMAS becomes very important, and computer is taught to use BODMAS. So if you have a scientific calculator or if you use computer to solve or to find out the answer, it will by itself use the BODMAS and find. In some schools, like some books, you will find instead of BODMAS, it is called PEMDAS. So PEMDAS. So P will be called parenthesis because some countries instead of brackets, they use the word parenthesis, they write there. Then exponents will come, then multiply, divide, add, and subtract. And order definitely remains from left to right. So exponents are much higher in order, so they should be done first. So if I want to show you how exactly it works, that BODMAS rule. So if you have been given an equation like this, you can't solve right from 6 plus 4. So you don't make it a 6 plus 4 as 10 and then multiply, but you'll have to use the rule that the innermost bracket should be solved first or exponent should be solved first, and see the steps in which it has gone. If you follow the BODMAS steps, then only you will reach to the right answer. Another example I can give you where the left to right rule will actually be much easy to put in, understand here. The important thing is here, understanding the formula, remembering, by hearting the formula is not sufficient in maths. You have to understand the rule, understand the formula, but practicing doing it again and again will only make your brain to remember application of that formula. So in math, the recitation is not sufficient. After recitation, knowing the formula, practicing using that formula and solving problems will make the brain to connect the use of formula and the formula itself. And once you solve 5 to 6 problems, it will be very easy for your brain to remember it forever. So one is recitation and second is practicing it. So please don't think that memorizing the formula is sufficient. Memorizing and solving using that formula is, that's why I put this example in the middle. Otherwise in memory technique, this example has no place as such. But sufficient practice will only make the formula remembered by the brain very well understood it very well. Okay, now this is something more interesting for people who are more on the right brain oriented. So if you want to remember the properties of the trigonometric part, so somebody, one of the student or somebody has written it into some poem like this. So you don't have to be scared about maths. You can make it more funny, fancy, and remember it like this. So circle. Cindy Circle is my name. Round and round I play my game. Start at the top and around the bend. Up we go, then there is no end. So all the properties, simple properties about circle are put in. Same way triangle, square, rectangle, and trapezoid are there. So this is something rhyming. Those who are not very comfortable with the left brain process, the logic, they can nicely make it into a right brain process and by heart the poem. It makes it very easy for you to remember the properties of the trigonometric shape. So for that matter, there's another poem on circle to know the deeper properties, how exactly the formula to find area and circumference has come. So this is quite interesting. I'm rolling and rolling 360 degrees, going round and round, rolling with ease. I go all round, no start and no end. I will roll on a line, I will roll on a bend, covering circumference around me. So it tells you that when a circle rolls, the amount of distance it covers is its circumference. So what is shown in the figure is its circumference. The diameter is twice my radius. To find my circumference and area, you got to use the pi, as the circumference is twice pi r and area is pi r square. So the logic part of it can be made nicely into rhyming or rhythmic. And if you by heart this poem, it's very easy to know all properties of circle. So those who feel maths as difficult because of its formulas, which is rather rude and very dry, convert it yourself into something like this. And today, if you Google, a lot of such things are available. And in your own language, you can make it. It's much easier to remember the properties. Once you know the properties, you can apply those formulas, solve the problems. It becomes much easier, and maths will become interesting for you. So for me, this is my thoughts for you. Life is like math. Add friends, subtract sorrow, multiply good memories, divide your duties, square on happiness, eliminate ego. Finally, you get a perfect and wonderful solution. So if you start loving math, life becomes much interesting. And with math, all other sciences become very easy for you. So those who do math well can do almost every other subject very well because math is at the base of everything. Now, we'll stop with this technique for today. That's called recitation, which we have learned very beginning in language when we recited a poem. Okay, so we'll use this technique of recitation. All of you have taken down this technique once, so I don't wish that you write it again, but I'm bringing it in front of you once again because I want you to use it for mathematical tables. Now, many of you think that I have a calculator, so why should I remember mathematical tables? But I'll tell you, if you go into any competitive exam, if you go into any exam which allows you entry into or admission to some course or post or a job, it is essential that you are quick on math. And calculator is many a times not allowed in competitive exams. So at such time, it becomes very easy if you are good at mathematical tables. And I find today's students don't know more than 10, 11, 12 ka table. More than that, they don't know. And that's where they get handicapped for solving math questions very quickly. So you remember this technique, right? Read line 1 3 times, 2 3 times, then 1 2 3 times, 3. Now what we have done modification here is for math table, there are no stanza. So you keep adding a line and repeat from 1 2 3 4. So what would be the next step is read line 5 3 times and read 1 2 3 4 5 3 times. So we go on like this up to the 10th. So this way continue till the table which goes up to 10. So shall we begin? I wish one of you read it and everyone closing their eyes, rather not closing their eyes, not closing their cameras, but keep it on for some time. May not unmute yourself, but one person will unmute and we will do the table. Okay. So we'll check this for tables for memorization. And this technique really works wonders. You do this table once and recite it for a week. It will remain with you. Even the most difficult tables which you find will also become very easy for you. So let's start. Who is ready to take the table of 23? Hoping that you don't know the table of 23, I've chosen 23. It's one of the difficult tables. Sahiti, will you do? Are you there, Sahiti?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, so can you read the table aloud? Read the first
The first one?
Yes. The whole
Okay.
table. We'll do it one after one. Everyone will do, but you will do it aloud. Others will do their aloud without keeping their mic on.
Okay.
Yes, start.
23 times 1 equals 23. 23 times 1 equals 23. And 23 times 1 equals 23. 23 times 2 equals 46. 23 times 2 equals 46. 23 times 2 equals 46.
Now read the first and second together.
Okay. 23 times 1 equals 23. 23 times 2 equals 46. 23 times 1 equals 23. 23 times 2 equals 46. 23 times 1 equals 23. 23 times 2 equals 46.
Yeah, next.
Okay. 23 times 3 equals 69. 23 times 3 equals 69. 23 times 3 equals 69.
Now 1 to 3.
Okay. 23 times 1 equals 23. 23 times 2 equals 46. 23 times 3 equals 69. 23 times 1 equals 23. 23 times 2 equals 46. 23 times 3 equals 69. 23 times 1 equals 23. 23 times 2 equals 46. 23 times 3 equals 69. 23
You stop. You continue yourself. Rutuja, can you start with the fourth one?
23 4s are 92. 20 are 90. 4s are 92. 23 1s are 23. 23 2s are 46. 23 3s are 69. 23 4s are 92. 23 1s are 23. 23 2s are 46. 23 3s are 69. 23 4s are 92. 23 1s are 23. 23 2s are 46. 23 3s are 69. 24 23 4s are 92.
Rishikesh,
20.
wait, Rishikesh.
Yeah.
Yeah, fifth one.
23 times 5 equals 115. 23 times 5 equals 115. 23 times 5 equals 115.
1 to 5. 1 to 5.
Oh, okay. 23 times 1 equals 23. 23 times 2 equals 46. 23 times 3 equals 69. 23 times 4 equals 92. 23 times 5 equals 150. 23 times 1 equals 23. 23 times 2 equals 46. 23 times 3 equals 69. 23 times 4 equals 92. 23 times 5 equals 150.
Third time.
Huh?
Third time.
Oh, okay. 23 times 1 equals 23. 23 times 2 equals 46. 23 times 3 equals 69. 23 times 4 equals 92. 23 times 5 equals 115.
Dikshita.
23 times 6 equals 138. Would you say 1 through 6 3 times?
Yeah, 3 times and then 1 to 6 3 times.
23 times 6 equals 138. 23 times 6 equals 138. Okay. 23 times 1 equals 23. 23 times 2 equals 46. 23 times 3 equals 69. 23 times 4 equals 92. 23 times 5 equals 115. 23 times 6 equals 138. 23 times 1 equals 23. 23 times 2 equals 46. 23 times 3 equals 69. 23 times 4 equals 92. 23 times 5 equals 115. 23 times 6 equals 138. 23 times 1 equals 23. 23 times 2 equals 46. 23 times 3 equals 69. 23 times 4 equals 92. 23 times 5 equals 115. 23 times 6 equals 138.
Divya,
23 times 1 equals 23. 23 times 2 equals 46. 23
no,
times
23 times 7 equals 161, 3 times first.
Okay. 23 times 7 equals 161. 23 times 7 equals 161. 23 times 7 equals 161.
Now 1 to 7 3 times.
23, wait, 1 to 7 3 times?
Yes.
Okay. 23 times 1 equals 23. 23 times 2 equals 46. 23 times 3 equals 69. 23 times 4 equals 92. 23 times 5 equals 115. 23 times 6 equals 138. 23 times 7 equals 161. 23 times 1 equals 23. 23 times 2 equals 46. 23 times 3 equals 69. 23 times 4 equals 92. 23 times 5 equals 115. 23 times 6 equals 138. 23 times 7 equals 161. 23 times 1 equals 23. 23 times 2 equals 46. 23 times 3 equals 69. 23 times 4 equals 92. 23 times 5 equals 115. 23 times 7 equals 161.
Anushka,
Okay.
23, 8.
Should I say like
23 times 8 is 184 3 times and then 1 to 8 3 times.
okay. 23 times 8 equals 184. 23 times 8 equals 184. 23 times 8 equals 184. 23 times 1 equals 23. 23 times 2 is 46. 23 times 3 is 69. 23 times 4 is 92. 23 times 5 is 115. 23 times 6 is 138. 23 times 7 is 161. 23 times 8 is 184. 23 times 1 is 23. 23 times 2 is 46. 23 times 3 is 69. 23 times 4 is 92. 23 times 5 is 115. 23 times 6 is 138. 23 times 7 is 161. 23 is 184. 23 times 1 is 23. 23 times 2 is 46. 23 times 3 is 69. 23 times 4 is 92. 23 times 5 is 115. 23 times 6 is 138. 23 times 7 is 161. And 23 times 8 is 184.
Arya,
23 times, 23 times 9 is 207. 23 times 9 is 207. 23 times 9 is 207. 23 times 1 is 23. 23 times 2 is 46. 23 times 3 is 69. 23 times 4 is 92. 23 times 5 is 115. 23 times 6 is 138. 23 times 7 is 161. 23 times 8 is 184. 23 times 9 is 207. 23 times 1 is 23. 23 times 2 is 46. 23 times 3 is 69. 23 times 4 is 92. 23 times 5 is 115. 23 times 6 is 138. 23 times 7 is 161. 23 times 8 is 184. 23 times 9 is 207. 23 times 1 is 23. 23 times 2 is 46. 23 times 3 is 69. 23 times 4 is 92. 23 times 5 is 115. 23 times 6 is 138. 23 times 7 is 161. 23 times 8 is 184. 23 times 9 is 207.
Sahas, Sahas? Sahas, are you there? Sahas, are you there? Okay, so let's all do together now, because 23 tens are 230 is an easy one. So let's do from first to last. All of you do it in your mind first, and I'm going to ask one of you. Sahas, are you there? I am hearing you. Okay, now, yeah, all of you do 1 to 10 3 times. So done it? Do you understand that while repeating, the last one we might have repeated very little, but from the first, we have done it many, many times. And what happens is the brain starts connecting this very easily. If you would read this 2-3 days continuously, once. Now today you have done the by hearting process. Read this 2 to 3 days daily, only one time. Automatically the brain will remember forever. So you need to use this for tables which you find are very difficult. How many of you feel confident that you can say it without seeing it also? Try doing that with your parents tomorrow or today afternoon or today evening. Get that confidence because tables are a very important part of math. Okay, so you can check whether you have memorized it or not. So what are the steps? Same recitation can be followed for formulas, which we will do tomorrow, but I want you to understand the steps. So write neatly the formulas, then understand the terms in it, recite using the technique used for poem or tables, the recitation technique. Practice every week reciting it loud. Reciting always should be loud. So the memory is seeing and reading, listening, all three will happen. Make a poster and put it in a place of your view. If you find some formulas are important and difficult for you, keep reciting them as many times as possible in the day. So something like this. If you want important algebraic formulas, write them, recite them, put them on a wall and see them again and again. It will become very easy for you to remember all these formulas. This is like algebraic formulas or geometric formulas with pictures. You put them as a chart in your room. It becomes very easy for you. After you have done recitation, see them every day. It will be forever with you without forget. Okay, so something like this about equation of line. You put them in a neat fashion and by heart them by using recitation. You will remember these formulas, but remembering the formula is not sufficient. I am mentioning once again that along with by hearting the formulas, using the formulas, solving problems will be very important to get good marks in mathematics. So take this site. I will be showing you tomorrow how we actually use online mind maps. So we'll do this tomorrow. You note down. If you have time, you can go through it. But I will show you tomorrow how exactly we can use this site and you can make wonderful mind maps, which is, I'll show you different mind maps made by this site and take down this. I'll put it in the group also, but it's a very simple thing. So we'll stop with this site today and tomorrow we'll see this and we will learn how all these techniques we'll use for writing exams in a better way. So tomorrow's session is going to be more about using all these techniques, how you can perform it. Okay. So hope you have noted this down. we will not do the prayer right now, but we will continue with parents meeting. So if you have taken it down, Sunilji, shall we do the prayer so that students want to go off and then we continue parents meeting?
We'll continue the parents meeting.
Parents. Okay. Yeah. Fine. So I will take out the slide. If you have taken down, I'll stop sharing and we'll start with the parents meeting. So thank you.
Your parents are there, children?
Ask them to come otherwise.
So don't disconnect, just ask their parents to join you.
Mama.
Yeah.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good afternoon, all Gurujis.
Oh, you're on mute, Indrani.
You are in mute, Indrani. Yeah.
Yeah. So all parents, we want you to share your experiences with your children's learning and your learning if you are attending, and what you think we have to brush up tomorrow or give some kind of tips you expect, because tomorrow's session is going to be about applying all these techniques, means including pranayam, meditation, food, brain food, and the memory techniques, how it helps them in their near future exams and further life. So that part we are going to definitely do tomorrow. So don't ask those questions today, but share your experiences individually. And if you have some doubts, see how this happens, that happens, you can ask. Sunilji, whoever speaks, we'll put them on the pin, right? We'll
Yes.
spotlight.
Oh.
Yeah, this is Lakshmi here. This is Dikshita's mom.
Yeah.
First of all, I would like to thank you all the Gurujis, Sunilji, Indraniji, and Janvi, to make this event so successful. I couldn't able to attend a couple of meets because I have my secondary kid. So but I have attended few of classes with Dikshi, and I felt it was like quite useful for them. It was great success for them to meet you guys, and you gave your quality time to these kids to share your knowledge, and I definitely recommend this to my friends and colleagues too, because in future they will use these techniques in their learning, not only in the learning but also in the day-to-day life. I think so. The homeworks, whatever you guys gave every weekend, I see Dikshi that she was very dedicated in them and being prompt in completing those work and submitting to you guys. And a couple of the techniques she shared with me, and we used to discuss, and it was quite helpful, and she was very interactive. So it was a good thing. She was like, please don't share my details from the back end. Dragging me back. So yeah. So yeah. Thank you all for such a wonderful opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Next, who else wants to? Yeah, whoever speaks will automatically come on the screen. So just unmute yourself and start speaking.
I actually also attended, I'm Divya's mom. I also attended the session as much as I could. And it was wonderful, the new techniques. And I only wish that I had access to that when I was growing up. But I think even if Divya takes away 15-20% of it, I think it'll be a lot easier for her to achieve what she wants to achieve. And thank you so much, Naima, for helping her out and also spending all this time and attention. And Sunilji, for you also. I mean, I've heard of yoga being like, good for different things, but never for like, brain exercise. So I thought that was I love the brain gym part of it. It was very nice. Thank you, Ji.
Yeah, next one. Anyone, you unmute and start. We are not going to call out students. We were calling out.
Yeah, thank you, Sunilji and Indrani. My son, I think he's lucky to be able to get these techniques at this early age. I hope he uses all the techniques that he receives. The only thing I see him is the kids, I don't know, I want to speak only about my son. He doesn't practice it every day. In the pranayama, meditation, whatever he learned, that's the part which I don't know how I can make it significant for him. But the techniques are really wonderful. And just today he received his math technique. We were discussing about this before, and he got his technique today, how to remember and multiply things faster. I think this is really helpful for him. He is little, compared to Indian kids, he's a little slower. The kids who receive their math skills here in US are slower. So I think these techniques will really help them. I'm so thankful, Indraniji, that to Sudhakarji, we know you, and it was really helpful that our kids receive these techniques at this early age. It will be really helpful for him when he grew up. And I would definitely share this with my friends and family. This is a really helpful class. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So one small thing for you is, don't worry about their meditation pranayam. You keep doing it. They will follow with you when they realize that it is essential, and they see you doing it, they'll definitely do it. That's very important. Okay. So don't worry about, because their basic health is generally at that age is good. But only thing is, whenever they feel sick or something, you should tell them, sit with me. You should invite them, not force them. Automatically they do it, because our children right from birth have been doing with us. Sometimes they miss it, but they don't value it unless they see us doing it. Just like how you have taught them brushing and toilet training and all what we did as young kids. This is also exactly like that, but we should take it as, I do it, my kids will do with me. That's it. So otherwise, yoga is not something which is very easy for kids to think, because their friends will not be doing it. So they think that when nobody does, why should I do? And that we have to put them from our own life experience, that see, Baba, the others don't do, but what's the problems they face? And if you do, you will not face this. So you have to keep introducing him to those goodness of yoga. And today, yoga has become the world's language. So your kids are lucky that they are not living in the. When we were kids, yoga was for 50 years and above. Today, it is not like that. It is everybody's way of life. So hopefully, they will be able to do it and use it.
Thank you.
Yeah, next. Yeah, you. Unmute and Rituja mother. Who else? Sahas father.
Hॅलो
Yeah, या बोला बोला मराठीत सुद्धा बोलू शकतो सगळ्यांना मराठी येतं.
This course is very useful for her in her study, and he's good doing in recently exams in her recently exams, and I'm very happy. Thank you
Oh,
very much.
Good. Yeah, who else is there?
Yeah, so hello everyone, I can share.
Sahas, yeah. Sahas father, yeah.
I'm Sahas' dad. So I think he understood all techniques. We discuss after the class. We discuss the techniques together. Yeah, and actually, even I am liking those techniques. So, so we are in IT industry. We have to prepare for interview is just like exam. There is a lot of things to remember, and every time going for interview, it is like, oh, so many things. So I am also planning to, prepare my mind maps now for for the interview. So he is able to, appreciate the techniques, and he is able to see how it will help. Now what I have to see is, actually when he goes back to his school, he is actually using those techniques and creating mind charts, and benefiting from that. So that is what something I want to see. Other than that, yeah, meditation, pranayam, I practice daily, but he's, I have to ask him every time. So if I ask him, he does it. But I have to ask him. That is there. But yeah, overall, very, I'm very thankful, Indrani Ma, Sunilji, for taking these classes. And thank you very much. And Janvi Ma for arranging.
Yeah, a big job. Yeah, who else is there?
I think, I will allow, like, Anushka's dad or mom was there, I think. I think they were
Anushka?
on the camera. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
Anushka, your
yeah,
parents are
Anushka's
there?
parents. So I think it's his name is Swapnil, I guess. Are they there? Yeah.
Anushka?
They must be nearby or something.
Yeah.
So
Actually, I had one question,
Yes.
Indranima. So,
Yeah.
uh, so you mentioned you learned a lot of languages by using these techniques. So if you can, either tomorrow or anytime, guide us which techniques, how you used to learn a brand new language.
See, basically, the thing is when you start using these techniques regularly, your brain gets habituated for categorizing what information you need, what you can filter. And language, a new language basically is about telling your brain new words. Just like I told you how spellings will be difficult for some people, language is difficult for some people because we translate in our mind and start talking. That is not something which you do when you use memory techniques. What you do is you listen carefully, store the word in your mind, and then start using it without fear. That's the only way I have learned so many languages, because I don't, like, I have studied in Marathi medium all through till my 10th. But even today, I don't think in Marathi and then talk English, because that's what not the way we learned English. I learned Telugu after I came to Andhra Pradesh, and I never learned by translating in my mind कि मराठी में ऐसा बोलते हैं, इसको तेलुगु में बोलना है तो ऐसा. Then your mind is totally confused, and that is a big mistake we do when we learn many languages. So we should learn every language like independent. Like you have math has its own language, science has its own language, exactly like that. German is its own. But once you learn another language, you start appreciating the constructions in it. And where we miss on a good language speaking is we do wrong construction in that language, because we use the construction of our base language and they go totally wrong in another language. So please learn language as like a new story you are reading. Listen, 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 read, 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 and start speaking. So LSRW should be the way of learning the language. Both we actually do reverse. So listen, speak, read, and then write. So you listen. When I watch a lot of movies in other language or subtitles, so padho baad mein. So this is the and listen, listen. That's it. That's the only way we have learned, because with SSY we have moved every state. Like I have taught in Gujarat, and then Delhi, and then Tamil Nadu, and then Karnataka. All states we were pushed by Guruji. So wherever we went, automatically we had to correct the homework of those people in that language. We have to listen to their sharing in that language, and the assistance which we'll get to create raw food and all will be from their local people who are not necessarily volunteers for first batch. There will be some kind of assistance of their home. And then we started listening to that language. And do not have influence of your mother tongue on the new language. And that's the mistake majority people do, which we don't do. I mean, with memory techniques, your brain learns to compartmentalize each language as independent. And that makes it very easy.
Yeah, I want to play the 2 minutes video. So
Sunilji, before you go, I think Vijita hasn't spoken. Sahiti's
Yeah,
mom.
Vijita. Yeah, Vijita.
okay.
Okay, I just joined.
Right.
I don't know what has happened earlier, but
No
to say
problem.
the
You
feedback,
share
I
your
loved
Yeah.
I loved the way Ranima has explained the techniques to the kids. I was amazed, like, okay, this is also a way of learning, which we didn't know. We've been saying that, okay, learn this, but the way it has to be learned is different, is what I understood. And that was amazing to say that. And coming to Sunilji's SSY and all, it's day in, day out process in our house. Sudhakar does that. So it's, I don't say that he has not taught anything, but it's a common practice which has happened. But Indranimas is something different that I got to know, and I was so amazed and pleased by having my daughter be in this program.
And she's following everything what practices were given. She's doing that.
Sure.
That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Shall I share that video?
Let Jannavi also speak out about her daughter.
Yes. So, first of all, thank you so much. I feel very, very grateful for all the teachers and especially Guruji for giving us this knowledge, and knowing this, that how great this course is. I've been in an SSY for more than 10 plus years, but wanting to have this, I was always super duper extra cherry on top curious about this whole course. And I was like, but we didn't have teachers in US. And when we had SSY teachers here, we did all the courses, and we've been wanting to have this. And having residential program, by the way, the parents. So this course in India is always taught in a residential, course in, kids' summer, break. But that happens in May, or sometimes towards end of the May or sometime, but Indian school calendar. But for our kids in US, it's not possible. So that was like one major hurdle. So it was always, but I was always praying that this to happen, and finally, the answers and the prayers were answered. And even Sunilji came, and he was telling, he was talking to Arya in person, and how great this course is. And he was telling Indranima is amazing teacher. So of course, I have, heard good things about the class and everything. And when Sunilji was saying, I was like, yes, I will do that. And then finally that, whenever, we woke up in middle of our summer, and still this class was about to happen. So I was like, okay, these are the God's blessing that this is happening, especially for having our kids in US, especially coming in the last minute registration, everything, the whole thing completing is a great, great success. And, my joy doesn't know any boundaries. It's amazing. The reason I say this, because as all the parents who attended the class, you can see how important it is and how methodical each and every memory technique, which is very well researched scientifically and everything. And of course, Indranima delivered fantastically. Sunilji, thank you so much for giving kids very joyful experience of having pranayam and meditation. And me coming from as a a volunteer plus a parent role, I was like, no, turn on the video. This is happening. That is happening. No. So it was like, and I used to be stressed. And and Sunilji is like, so what happened? Did I say anything? So I was like, oh my God, so calm, and how to handle kids and everything, making them more interactive. Very, very good. And thank you, Sunilji, so much for giving us the different walkthroughs about the vision part, the vision chart and the videos, inspirational videos. So that gave the approach, about, instead of parents insisting, oh, how important, because they're all teens, they don't know the life, the whole vision or the whole picture yet, like what, or at least where we are, at least we also don't know the whole picture, but wherever the journey we cross, we wanted to give that. So, but that approach, like coming from you, Sunilji, was amazing. I think in my mind, at least for when I had the discussion with Arya, maybe 100 questions were already answered in that one session, Sunilji, or multiple sessions. So really, really grateful. So I feel like Arya understood all the concepts. Doing the homework was not easy. So that was like a different, pushback for a different reason, because the timing was like school started, this and that, and weekends are being here. But at the end of the day, we had very good discussion how valuable this is for her and how useful these techniques are and will be. So, and just wanted to add one thing. My husband is not here today because he had to be in another event in person, which is a very, very big thing for us. But he has been using the memory techniques, and he has been practicing Haripat every day. And he is using these techniques because for him, remembering things is always a challenge. Sometimes he will forget names or events and dates. So for him, he's finding like, the memory techniques for reciting Haripat or different things is very, very helpful. So thank you so much, Sunil ji, for starting this, and, Indranima for not, being very, very flexible for us, and, you as kids. And I'm sure like it was not easy how many students you have dealt in throughout your life, and kids here, especially not turning the video or not participating or not even doing homework. So thank you so much. I personally learned a lot. So, very, very grateful. And thank you so much, Shri ji, for being the co-volunteer and, doing all the legwork, talking to people, registering, last minute registration and last minute planning for this summer and little bit of the school beginning. It was not an easy task, but feel very, very grateful for all the parents. So I'll stop here. Otherwise, I'll keep on talking the whole day. Thank you so much. Sunilji, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Janima and DG and Sudhakar ji. Okay, so they take it little forward and they mode it, fantastically. They wanted to do it. So thank you. So I want to just play the video. So it's very interesting. I felt very nice. Especially it is good for the parents. Okay. It's only hardly 2 minutes.
Oh no, someone can't do it.
Nancy, can you?
Look at the one that made it, watching all the other ones. Oh! Look at that. Oh my god. Oh, they're trying so hard.
Should we help them?
No. They're giving up. That mom better come down the stairs.
Huh? They'll figure it out.
Look. Oh.
It's like a video game.
Yeah, it's so cute.
Check it. People gonna come by, so they're close.
Then they're gonna get scared. I feel like being far away is better. I get a view of all of them. Oh, they're doing it. Look at them. Some of them. I guess she's just gonna leave them. Oh, the lad. There we go. Last one. Oh, go on. She knows. How cute is that? Yay!
Okay. Yes. So what you understood by this video?
Everyone gets their time. Everyone is not the same. So the first duckling, it went too fast, and the second one, the second two, they took their time, and finally they all reached successfully to their mom. And the other thing I noticed was when the mother mom was moving here, they're all moving there. And the, and the mom was going there, everyone stopped their practice and they went there and they're jumping from there. So it's like a teamwork there. And yeah, it's good to, it's good. Yeah,
Their
successfully,
parents'
they all
footsteps.
landed.
That's what I felt.
Yes.
Might take them time, but eventually they will follow their parents' footsteps the way they are doing. Either it's good or it's bad, they will follow that.
Yes. So we require a little bit more patience, okay, and support. That is very important and just like inspiring. Okay, so that is the very key point, So, but we don't have patience. Okay, come on, fast, like that. You have to do now only. So only we have to inspire. That's the key point, So even they didn't help the babies to put them up. Okay, so let them do it by themselves. Okay, so if you start helping, then they become dependent on us only. No doubt. So whenever the requirement is there, definitely we need to be helped. Okay, so we have to just inspire them to do regular meditation, pranayam, charting, yeah, all the technique, whatever Indranima taught them. Okay, that inspiration only helps them. Okay, so not forcing. So up to when they get the strength, physical and mentally, even the financially, then they don't listen to you. Okay, so then they will away from us. Okay, so they feel more freedom. Okay, when we start inspiring them, okay, suggesting them, yeah, and requesting them, so they like to follow you. Okay, so that is what it is. And our presence confidence is very important. That's okay, we should have that confidence. Okay, today or day tomorrow, okay, one day they will come up. And every child is like unique. Okay, so no doubt we cannot measure with everyone. So they have their uniqueness. They will express their feelings, their talent, their way of learning method also, the way of living their lifestyle also. Okay, usually we compare with our experience, with our understanding. So they may have different vision, different direction, different style. Okay, so we don't know. Okay, so we have to just evolve them, yeah, explore them by themselves. That will help more. Okay, no doubt we are inspiring to do this all memory technique methods. Okay, so maybe they will find out the other one also. You may have seen the movie 36 Chamber of Savelin, like, so only the 35 was there, but he found out the 36 chamber, like. So master never taught him to do like this, but he learned by himself because he has the vision. So that is the main key point to go further forward in their life. Okay, that's very important. Thank you.
I have a last word to tell all of you. I heard from all of you. All of you are happy today. But I have one request to all of you that after the course, please don't talk to children like you did that course, you are not practicing, what's the use, it's a waste. If you use any one time this kind of a language to them that you are not using it, it's of no use, that time you did, then they will think that it is really a waste and they'll keep it aside. So always talk to them in, as Sunilji said, a supporting manner, a positive way that see, see, that day we learned this can be used for this technique, that technique can be used, which technique you think can be used. So you have to make them more inquisitive in using it, because I'll tell you, the problem will come when they go to school. Their teachers don't know they have learned all these techniques. Their friends will not be using these techniques. For some time, they'll feel very nice, but after some time, they will start feeling that nobody is using, why should I be using it? So you will have to keep on with them, because they don't have a company at their environment, which is school. And you should become their good company at home, which supports them, because they have to be balancing on many aspects once they have learned something good. It pinches them if they cannot use it, but slowly that pinch should not go away. That inquisitiveness should remain. So what we'll do is, when the next batch starts, or after around the 2 months or so, we will have one revision session. We'll teach them something new and we'll talk to them. So we will have some connect with them. We'll not leave them after doing the 10 sessions. But I wish you do not ever talk to them that this is not useful, because that gets into their head once. They will never listen to you or me once they come back, or we come to them also. So it should be like, out of the 10-15 techniques we have taught them, one or two they will use. Then sometime later, when they feel that this is becoming tough, you ask them which technique you think will be useful, or you suggest them, and keep it in a positive track all the time, because that is what has happened to yoga for last 1,000 years. Though India discovered yoga 1,000 years before, people lost it and kept it like a tool for health. Like, if you become unhealthy, then use it. That became the technique of yoga. But rather, today we have understood that before becoming unhealthy, if you use it, you remain healthy. Exactly same with the brain. So yeah, once it becomes stressed, removing stress using these techniques is not possible. Okay, you cannot use these techniques to come out of stress of study. These techniques will keep you out of stress of study, is what you should give them guidance, and you should trust this, because this really works. And you start using it, let them keep using it, one or two, they will also know, because they have a bigger problem zone around them, where nobody around them is going to follow. And this we have seen happening with Indian kids also. Rather, here the teachers will shout at them. You can't do anything other than what I tell you. I don't know what happens in your schools there. So if the teachers also press them that they must follow whatever the teacher says, at home at least you make them that they practice, because this is what many children come back and tell us, that we are in a fix. The teacher is pressurizing to follow whatever the teacher told, mother or father are telling to follow what you have told, and we are confused. So make sure that this confusion is at least kept away from them by not forcing from either side. So if that is dealt, children will do fantastically well. Okay? So thank you so much for sparing your time, and for Indian parents especially, it's very, very late. So thank you for keeping so late, but hope to see you sometime as a satsang or a revision meeting again. Thank you. We'll,
Jai Gurudev. We'll do pray.
yes,
Yeah.
we'll do quick prayer.
Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso mam jyotirgamaya muktam amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Jai.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was very, very important. what Indranima you said, and Sunilji. Now the mother duckling is my one of the. I'm going to put it her on my wall or screen. So, yes, thank you so much. Yeah, bye.
Thank you all. Yeah.
Thank
Thanks again.
you. Bye.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.